We got Hawaii going on the road to take on UNLV. It's an 8:30 Mountain Time game on FS1 for Hawaii. Besides a slip up against San Jose State a couple of weeks ago, they've been rolling in hot. Uh, proving that they are just as much of a threat as any other team. You know, through these final stretches of Mountain West play. 7-3 on the season, 4-2 in conference play, and they're taking on a UNLV team that has been vulnerable all throughout the season. They've found ways in crunch time to come out on top on most of those games. Besides against Boise State in New Mexico this year, they are 8-2 on the season, 4-2 in conference play as well. They're one of six teams that will be left going into this week with a chance of being in Mountain West title game. Both of these teams, this is pretty much it for them. Whoever loses this game on Friday will be out of the Mountain West title running. Both of these teams need this win, and it's going to be an intriguing matchup, seeing as they're both style of play. UNLV comes in this 2.5-point favorites. The over/under on this is 64.5. It has the makings of a high-scoring shootout. Exchanging touchdown after touchdown. The team that makes the most mistakes, and so far this season that's been UNLV, may end up losing this game. Despite some slip ups in the past couple of weeks, Anthony Calandra is still a legitimate quarterback in Mountain West. The lack of Jaden Thomas in their overtime win against Utah State was noticeable. They definitely need him to just have the offense running in its most effective way. Mike Alejado has been playing really well, 2,300 yards passing on the season, 18 passing touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He may have the passing tool set to expose UNLV's defense. It's gonna be intriguing the way they do these little out route passes. It's been effective, and UNLV's defense can get torn apart from a quarterback like that. For the Rebels, they're gonna rely on Adelaide and McDuffie to pressure Alejado the best they can, make sure his throws aren't accurate, and just force a hurry pass to hopefully come up with one of their signature turnovers. Both these teams are coming off of great wins last week. Overtime win over against Utah State that they took advantage of the Aggies' poor kicking abilities to get the win. As for Hawaii, big victory against San Diego State a couple weeks ago, 38-6. That's against the top team in the Mountain West, so that has to boast well for the Rainbow Warriors coming into this game. They also are able to handle Utah State with much more ease than UNLV did most recently. 44-26 victory there. Just a slip up against San Jose State, who's proven to be just a huge mystery. They've got big wins against New Mexico and this Hawaii team, but the rest of the way they looked sloppy and turnover prone. What do you take away from that? I think it was a slip up on Hawaii's part, but they are clearly good enough to be in this top echelon of Mountain West. UNLV comes in this averaging 36 points per game. They're +7 on the turnover ratio. As for Hawaii, they're 30 points per game. They're -4 on the turnover ratio. Hawaii has an offense I think could expose UNLV. At the same time, UNLV's offense is good enough to match score for score. It's really going to come down to how many points the Rebels let up, what they allow Alejado and guys like Landon Sims do to extend the ball, drive it downfield. This is the first game where sort of the dominoes will fall in the favor of a certain team. The loser of this game's still going to a bowl game, but they will not be able to be in the top two at the end of the season. Right now, I lean towards UNLV at home. It's not necessarily how UNLV starts. They finish well, 8-2 on the season to prove that. And I just think even despite all their faults, they still may be a step ahead of a Hawaii team, taking advantage of a home field advantage. Hawaii certainly isn't a juggernaut team. They do play good football, and they've been playing good football down the stretch. I like to think this is going to be a sort of a pick'em type game where they're going to be exchanging a lot of scores. The team that makes the first mistake may end up losing this game. It's going to be, can Alejado use that air raid attack and and pass effectively? And for UNLV, will they be able to run the ball the way they want to? If they had, I think Kalandra's going to be a big part with his not only throwing the ball but with his feet. I think Jane Thomas has to be healthy and in this game for UNLV to win it. If Thomas is in this game, he's a real threat against Hawaii, and I don't know if Hawaii's going to be able to stop him. I think adding him in with Kevon Lee along with Kalandra, I think it's going to be a little too much for the Rainbow Warriors running the ball. I think this is going to produce one of the best games of the season for Mountain West play. A game that has huge implications. A game that I'm going to dive into just the overall implications, in the final 2 weeks for Mountain West play in another video. It's going to be a good matchup. You mix that all in there with F1 weekend in Vegas. It's going to be a lot of fireworks. I'm hoping it's just a good, clean game. I hope all the stars are healthy. I hope it's a real shootout, and we get a true winner in this game. It's Hawaii going on the road to take on UNLV. It's an 8:30 Mountain Time game on FS1. Be sure to check this one out. We got Nevada going on the road to take on Wyoming. It's a 12 o'clock game Mountain Time on Mountain West Network. I don't want to say this is a consolation game, but it feels that way. You got Nevada 2-8 in the season, 1-5 in Mountain West play, going up against a 4-6 Wyoming team, 2-4 in Mountain West play. For Wyoming, there's a very slim chance, but it's there. If they could get a win here, that they need to win one more, and they'll be 6-6 on the season, possibly going to a bowl game. But from what you've seen the past 2 weeks, do you really believe it? A 24-7 defeat against San Diego State, and most recently a 24-3 loss against Fresno State. This Cowboys team just proves that they can't really score. Defense, it's can only do so much if you're not putting points on the board. As for Nevada, they're coming off their best win of the season. 55-10 defeat over San Jose State. A huge victory, good win for them. They deserve it. Carter Jones, Caleb Ramser, Chuba Purdy all played their butts off. Just great performance. You got Wyoming coming in as 6.5 point favorites. The over under on this one's 41.5. It could be a close game. It could be another huge Nevada victory based off of what we've seen from Wyoming and their lack of offense. Nevada, similarly to Air Force, the record speaks for itself, but in those games they've stood in it for a little bit, and they've proven to have some fight in them. They just really can't finish that strong. A lot of turnovers, a lot of mistakes, but Nevada has just shown a little more fight recently than Wyoming has. If nothing else, they've proven the last week that they can put points on the board, and they do it against a decent team in San Jose State that, despite their record, was able to beat teams like Hawaii and New Mexico. So Nevada just has a little more fight to them. They've established a little bit more of an offense, and it's funny because the first 6-7 weeks, Nevada just had an atrocious offense that really couldn't put points on the board. From what we've seen, like Wyoming, for Nevada, they've accounted for 17 interceptions between their bunch of quarterbacks compared to Wyoming's 10 interceptions. The difference is those 10 interceptions came from Caden Anderson alone. He's been a quarterback that's shown flashes of good play, but it's been scarcely seen the past few weeks. These teams are basically neck and neck in their lack of scoring. Wyoming's 17 points per game to Nevada's 18 points per game. Wyoming -4 on the turnover ratio. Compared to Nevada, they're -11 on the turnover ratio. Just bad football for these teams this season, and unfortunately it sort of just has rollen over from last season. Both these teams are the bottom of Mountain West in 2024, and they're going to be the bottom of the Mountain West in 2025 season as well. I certainly have talked about how bad of a team Nevada has been this season, and oddly enough, you sort of feel a little bit more confident in what they may be able to produce than this Wyoming team. Now, Wyoming does have a great defense. They've sort of fallen off in the past 3 or 4 weeks, but that's just lack of offense, lack of maintaining the football for the Cowboys. And despite Nevada being 1-5 in their last 5 games, they've just shown a little bit more fight. They gave New Mexico a run for their money. They gave Boise State, a tough competition on a Friday night matchup. They get killed against Utah State, sure, but then they, come back and get a huge victory against San Jose State. So I would just say the Wolfpack, despite their record, seem to be a little more willing to put up a fight, and they've shown that they still want to win games in this season despite how it may turn out. Something has me feeling that even though Wyoming's at home and have been a little bit more of a consistent team, that I just don't favor them in this matchup. I think it's gonna be a close game. I would not be surprised if Nevada is able to get back-to-back wins despite their records and sort of their poor play from both teams we've seen this season. I think this is going to be a pretty good matchup. I think it's going to be closer than expected, and I'm not sure who's going to come out on top on this one, but I think it will produce a pretty good Mountain West game late in November. It's Nevada going on to take on Wyoming. It's a noon game Mountain Time on Mountain West Network. Be sure to check this one out. We got New Mexico going on the road to take on Air Force. It's a 5 p.m. Mountain Time game on CBS Sportsnet. For New Mexico, going on the road to take on a tough Air Force team. 3-7 on the season, only 2-4 in conference play, but still dangerous for a New Mexico team that's 4-2 in conference play. They cannot afford to drop this game to a team like Air Force with 2 weeks left. New Mexico comes in this 3.5 point favorites. The over/under on it's 56.5. After a close game against Colorado State last week, where the Lobos came out on top, 17-20, they are so close. They can see the light at the end of the tunnel. A team that they should beat easily in Air Force. A tough team, but they should beat them easily, especially with the news of Liam Zarka most likely being out for the season. You cannot drop this game to them. You have to see this game as the roadblock in the Lobos' path, where if they can get past this, they take on San Diego State for Thanksgiving, at home, with the chance of winding up in a Mountain West title game. That's big for New Mexico fans, for the program, for Jason Eck in his first year. They really just need to get to that point. They cannot lose this game to a team that's been beat up the past few weeks. This Falcons team, they like to stay in it, stay competitive. They like to they maintain playing their football, and though it hasn't turned out the way they'd like, they got some crucial upsets against San Jose State and Wyoming that have sort of altered both their seasons. New Mexico doesn't want the same thing to happen to them. Coming off of a bye last week, maybe that's an excuse for sort of their slow start and sort of lazy play throughout, but they need to be on track and ready to go for this game. I think there's enough weapons. It's going to be tough for Air Force to contain, whether it's Bankston or McKinney, if it's Scottre Humphrey, if it's Keegan Johnson or Dorian Thomas. I think there's enough weapons for that Lobos offense to just keep Air Force on their heels all night. I think there's room to sort of pass all over this Falcons team. I think they'll be able to run effectively. In the past few weeks, it's been the offense for the Lobos that's sort of been their crutch for them. I think the defense has played incredibly well, gotten better and better every week, pressuring quarterbacks and limiting big plays down the field. Now, probably the biggest weakness has been special teams. They've given up some big plays on special teams, mostly on punt returns and kick returns. Fielding the ball in play and fair catching it correctly has been crucial for the Lobos, and has led to them getting horrible, field possession or muff punts and a turnover going the other way. So I think special teams, they have to really tighten up in a game like this. The bad news is, if Zarka is out, he was their sort of do-it-all kind of guy. Kemper Hodges came in to play quarterback through the final minutes of the UConn game last week, but where do they go from here? Now they're going to have to rely on Owen Allen and Dylan Carson twice as much as they did before. If anything, the Lobos have proven that they can score very quickly, and if Air Force can't match that score for score, they're going to find themselves like most of this season, sort of down early and trying to claw their way back, and there may not be enough time with the way they run the ball, uh, to come back in this game if they get down early, 2, 3 possessions. A team that, oddly enough, uh, you know, averages about 31 points per game. The Falcons do. They're 0 on the turnover ratio. They play mostly clean football. As for the Lobos, they're about 30 points per game. They're minus 11 on the turnover ratio. It's just these mistakes that would have them you know on top in most of these games by a much more favorable margin, but they find themselves sort of playing down to their level of competition, and the games have been a lot closer than they would want them to be. As for the Lobos, Jack Lane has been uh, just questionable at times in the way he takes sacks, the way he's pressured, the way he doesn't utilize the read option to his advantage. In other times, when he's taken advantage of, you know, keeping the ball in these options, he's scored touchdowns. He's gotten huge plays downfield. When he can get the ball off quick enough, uh, it's come up with some big plays. Jackson X, near the top of the lead in Mountain West for tackles. The defense has been playing really good of late. I don't think they're going to be really the question mark in this game. To me, how effective is that offense is, and can they light it up on Air Force and just can keep it up consistently? Not let off the gas from start to finish. This game has so many implications for the Lobos and how they end up in postseason play that I'll go into it in a different video breaking down all the Mountain West teams. But this is a crucial game that they can't slip up against Air Force. It's New Mexico going on the road to take on Air Force. It's a 5 p.m. Mountain Time game on CBS Sportsnet. Be sure to check this one out. We got Colorado State going on the road to take on Boise State. It's a 5 p.m. Mountain Time game on FS1. Usually, this is a matchup where we'd say Boise State's a lock and they should get Colorado State out of this one early. But from what we've seen the past 2 weeks from the Broncos, Max Cutforth under center, it does not look pretty offensively for the Broncos. Uh, they entered this game 16.5 point favorites. Over under on this one's 44.5, and I just don't know if I buy that. This may be a close matchup if they can't get the offense going the way it was 3-4 weeks ago. A 2-game losing skid that has seen Boise State only put up 14 points in those 2 matchups. A Colorado State team 2-8 in the season, 1-5 in conference play, but gave New Mexico a run for their money last week in a 17-20 loss. I like to think that this Boise State defense is good enough to handle a team that's seen 3 different quarterbacks start this season for the Rams. Whether it's Jackson Broussard or if it's Darius Curry, neither one has been over the top impressive. I think Broussard has just got a little more experience with most of his starts. I don't know if they go with the Darius Curry route. He threw 3 picks last weekend against New Mexico. On the other side of the ball, it's been Max Cutforth, who's had a really shaky start the past 2 weeks. 37 defeat against Fresno State and then a 17-7 defeat against San Diego State. Does not boast well. They did not trust his passing whatsoever. Maybe this is the game where they can rely on the running game with Dylan Riley and Cyril Gaines, but those guys had about 80 yards rushing last weekend against a stout San Diego State defense. If this is the game where they can rely on the running game, you'll have Gaines and Riley and Sherrod being able to put up some effective yards with that 3-headed monster. This is still a team that puts up about 30 points per game to the Rams' 18 points per game. Certainly the biggest motivation for Boise State is this is a game they cannot afford to lose. They can't lose 3 Mountain West games back to back to back and expect to return to a Mountain West title game. Now, if they can win this game, and they should win this game, 16.5-point favorites, it's still there for them. And likely, I think they have a tough matchup against Utah State to end their season, but you get past these 2 games, and it's likely that Boise State is still hosting the Mountain West title game in 3 weeks' time. It's going to be a question of how much fight the Rams have going into this matchup in Boise. Boise State, if they can overwhelm them, which they should be able to do, despite sort of the lack of QB play from Cutforth, I think this is a game where they can get them out of here by halftime. No messing around. Uh, Rely on the running game, solid defense, and this should be a clear victory for Boise State. Of course, what we've seen from the last 2 weeks of this offense, anyone could be hesitant going in this game. Uh, they have to look at it as a game that they need to win. They can't afford to lose this game. And their last season in the Mountain West with a bang and proving that they were, truly dominant through this era. It's Colorado State going on the road to take on Boise State. It's a 5 p.m. Mountain Time game on FS1. Be sure to check this one out. We got Utah State going on the road to take on Fresno State. It's an 8:30 Mountain Time game on CBS Sportsnet. This is a game where both these teams need a win. Both of these teams can almost certainly lock in their fate what they do it this weekend if they can win. We got Utah State 5-5 on the season, 3-3 in conference play. They're just fighting to get that 6th win of the season. As for Fresno State, 7-3 on the year, 4-2 in conference play. They're one of those 6 teams that have a crack at finishing out in the top 2 and finding themselves in a Mountain West title game. Fresno State comes in this 2.5 point favorites. The over/under on it's 50.5. It's an intriguing matchup. Utah State offense has been explosive. They've been known to put up a lot of points. Bryson Barnes has been phenomenal in most of his games this season. Fresno State getting 2 big back-to-back wins against Boise State and Wyoming. Carson Conklin looked his best last week against Wyoming. This is a game that has a lot of implications, and seeing as both these teams are still very much in it, looking to get a huge victory this weekend, it could be fireworks. This could be one of the best clashes of the year. I'd like to think that the Aggies have a little bit more of an edge. I've seen what they can do offensively this season, and it's been more impressive than what the Bulldogs have been able to do. Carson Conklin hasn't really impressed. He's been just a step above EJ Warner, if you can say that. He's got 2 interceptions on the season. They haven't really leaned on him too much. They've relied on Rayshawn Luke and Bryson Donaldson. As for the Aggies, Bryson Barnes has been their guy. After coming back from injury, he's been playing better and better. He can rely on Miles Davis more so. And Braden Pagan is his go-to target. This has been a really effective offense. A team that's been competitive but just came up short last week against UNLV in overtime, but still very much a threat. They're looking to finish at least 500 on the season. If they can get a win this week, it'd be a good year for Bronco Mendenhall in year 1. I think the Aggies are a team that just scores a little more with ease than Fresno State. They also limit turnovers a little bit better than Fresno State has done this season. I also look at the wins that Fresno State was able to get the past few weeks. Sure, it was Boise State, but it's Boise State without their number 1 quarterback, and that had a serious effect. And as for Wyoming, they're a team that's been lacking offensively, pretty much this whole season, and it's been most noticeable the past 3 weeks. As for Utah State, they dropped games against a high-scoring Hawaii team, explosive New Mexico team, and a team that's just got the intangibles in UNLV, and also all those games coming on the road. So will this be another tough road game for them? I think it'll be a little bit easier than the last 3 games for them on the road. This is a game where I think guys like John Miller will be able to pressure Conklin a little bit better and really force him to find his targets quickly or get rid of the ball quickly. And I could see him slipping up and making some mistakes there. I think Utah State's defense is good enough to just keep Fresno State on their heels. I don't think Fresno State's going to be able to match score for score with what Utah State's going to bring to the table. This is one of those games where there's plenty at stake in this game. There's going to be everyone else in the top echelon of the Mountain West rooting for Utah State this weekend. seeing as it'll help their chances tremendously. It's Utah State going on the road to take on Fresno State. It's an 8:30 Mountain Time game on CBS Sportsnet. Be sure to check this one out. We got San Jose State going on the road to take on San Diego State. It's an 8:30 Mountain Time game on FS1. This is one of those games where it should be a shoo-in, right? I mean, San Jose State 3-7 on the season. They've dropped some huge games this last month, and for San Diego State, they're rolling in hot. Big win against Boise State. 8-2 on the season. 5-1 in conference play. They're so close to that Mountain West title game and hosting it. Uh, you know, this is one of those games where it could be a trap, and they could slip up. San Diego State comes into this game 11.5-point favorites. The over-under on this is 49.5. Despite the Spartans' record, and despite what Walker Eget has been the past few weeks, huge turnover prone. If they can get it together, and if he's starting, they may find themselves, with another winnable game. Now, San Diego State's got a phenomenal defense, but their offense has just been known for being lackluster. They put up 17 points in that win against Boise State, a team that really couldn't get anything going offensively themselves. Walker Eget is starting, and he's back into a groove, and he's got Scudero to rely on. This is a team that can put up a lot of points quickly. They can definitely pass effectively at times. They've gotten huge upsets against teams like Hawaii and New Mexico, so it's not insane to think that they may be able to do the same thing against the Aztecs. Now, certainly they don't have the running game that the Aztecs do have. They have Lucky Sutton, who's been their go-to guy all season long. He's been the one they count on. Jaden Denegal has used his feet to score effectively, and despite what they get out of the passing game, it doesn't matter at this point because they've been proven to win games the way they play football. Now, when you have a quarterback that's been proven to be able to air the ball out effectively, like Walker Eget, it's always a threat. It's always there in front of you, and if you can expose some things in this defense, Walker Eget can have a pretty good day. Now, what their defense will be able to do to limit the Aztecs, it's going to be interesting to see, but you cannot count out a team like San Jose State, certainly not with only 2 weeks to go in the season. The fact that San Diego State's going to find themselves in a tough game next week to finish the season on the road against New Mexico, this is a game that they cannot, they can't really afford to slip up on. If they lose this game, they really can't afford to lose a game next weekend on the road, which is it's likely. It's very possible with a tough matchup like that. You don't want to slip up against a team like San Jose State that's 3-7 on the season. San Diego State's clearly in the driver's seat. They just have to win out the rest of the way, and they'll be hosting the Mountain West title game, and everything will be going for them. And not a bad year for Sean Lewis and this Aztecs team. My head's telling me that the Aztecs should really blow San Jose State out of the water in this one, handle them with ease. But at the same time, my gut's saying that you really can't sleep on a team like San Jose State, despite their record. They're a team that can pass the ball, and when you can pass the ball, you always have a chance in this game. Certainly a great way to end your night. San Jose State going on the road to take on San Diego State. It's an 8:30 Mountain Time game on FS1. Be sure to check this one out.